LARPing is live action role playing. That's what a lot of religious people are doing. They're just pretending to be a certain member, or they're pretending to be a part of a cult. I mean, it's what it is. It's live action role playing. When you see a Chabad Orthodox Jew doing all their Jew things, you're like, ah, he's LARPing from from the 1870s from Lithuania. They haven't given up the LARP yet.
I don't consider that LARPing. I consider it to be part of the tradition, and the rituals, right, that they go through for their religion. It's not LARPing. That's like it is ritual. It's
I know
ritual.
I'm emphasizing that it's LARPing. It's not really LARPing, but I'm saying that all religions are technically, there's components of them which are LARPing, just in the sense that people go to the forest and play witches and warlocks and knights, and they battle it out with rules, and they play these games in the forest. It's called LARPing. I don't know the names of the organizations, but that's what people do.
You mean those people who are like going, like they essentially have like this big battle, and they go in with like big foam swords and stuff, and they all fight each other in this big
Yeah,
field.
they got rules and a point system. It's a
I don't see how
nonprofit.
that like the same thing as the rituals that exist within religions.
Well, you really can't see how it's all essentially fantasy and role play and imaginative. It's all in the mind's eye. I mean, yes, there's a historicity to religion, but if you let it go, you find that you're actually in the present moment, and what you're doing is role playing something else outside of the present moment.
I don't know. How do you feel about that, Nathan? Do you think that theists are role playing um, in the present when they're doing their rituals and they're worshiping? Like, you think that like that's like role play? Because I honestly think they believe that those rituals and traditions like have actual value.
Yeah, I think the difference between LARPing would be like the people out in the forest, for the vast majority of them, understand they're pretending for the afternoon, whereas these people are actually convincing themselves, whether subconsciously, deep down, they know it. Like, I have my own argument that I think a lot of Christians are full of shit, because even the Pope has like a bulletproof bubble around him, right? Like, fuck Jesus. After he got shot, that was like, that's it. We got the Pope mobile now, right? But I mean, I think the difference is they're really trying to convince themselves it's real. Now, I would agree there's people in the pews that are LARPing, that just go through the motions, and they are like lip service Christians, right?
Yeah.
That I would consider LARPing for sure. But I think there's people that obviously that are hardcore, that are like, they, for whatever reason, they convince themselves it's real, right?
Yeah, I agree that there are people probably who go to church all the time who don't actually believe, right? They do it because their family, because they're so used to, or they like the community, or they're just so used to it, I feel like if they stop doing that, they'll be criticized or something for it, right? But I don't want to like say that that's
But it's really,
alarm.
it's also a choice of content selection. So when you come here in Clown House and you create, or you listen here to creators, there's something called like the act of creative. And by going to these ceremonies, you are participating in an act of creation.
I mean, I'm an artist. I think that's like an act of creation. I don't know how going to like a ceremony is in and of itself an act of creation.
I'm saying it's a choice of content selection. Listen, I'm just saying that this is the thing that bothers me about atheists, is that if you haven't read the same books that I have, and I still consider myself an atheist, but the books I've read have to deal with God consciousness, you're just missing out on the best flavor tacos or pizza or cheeseburger you've ever had, because you've never picked up that book.
I mean, I don't know if I can agree that because I haven't picked up a particular book that you've read, that means like I'm missing out on like some aspect of the world. I just don't think that follows.
I have a film recommendation when we've got them.
Shoot.
To be fair, Rascal, I mean, I've never tried to eat horse shit, but I'm pretty sure I don't want to eat horse shit, and I'm probably not going to try it. Now, it might taste like pizza or ice cream.
I know, but have you ever heard of the Dhammapada or Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching? If you think that these ancient Chinese philosophical books are horseshit, I mean, clearly, you get the point that
Yeah,
it is
I'm not saying
horseshit.
necessarily horseshit, but I'm just saying.
I'm not taking it personally. I'm making a joke out of what you're saying, because it's true in the sense that they say that the Buddha is a dried turd. And so, how do you explain what that even means? I mean, you probably wouldn't be able to explain why that makes sense. that Buddha is a dried turd.
Who says that?
It's in the literature. If you would have read the book, you may have heard the statement. But since you don't read books on religion or psychology or philosophy, and you're just a hardcore theistic
So
little
now,
prick,
so why would you assume that I don't read books on psychology, religion, or philosophy? Especially since I went to school, like, and minored in philosophy. Why would you make that claim? Yeah, that's what I thought. You're just a bullshitter.
Yeah, you need to be on like Book Talk or something. You know what that is, like TikTok recommending books. People will go for that, I'm sure. Yeah, I think a lot of the adages that we live by have been written down in many different ways, in many different languages, in different metaphors and parables over and over again. Some of them work, some of them don't. It's kind of hard to differentiate them, so probably shouldn't be like.
Yeah, you just pick and choose and put together your own eclectic version of spirituality, then you come online and get in arguments on Clubhouse and pretend like you're an expert on the Trinity or whatever the topic is.
Like people who do a lot of reading don't read any. There are people who are into philosophy don't read philosophy books. Yeah, I'm gonna do that to people.
I just read excerpts of books mostly on philosophy. Can't say I've read a full book on the topic. I mean, maybe I have. Maybe I haven't even realized it. I've read The Alchemist. Does that count?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, I minored in philosophy. I've read numerous philosophical papers and texts, and continue to do that to today.
But you haven't read every single one of them. That's ever been produced in the history of civilization. Come on, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not a substitute. So, although it's an important thing for us to consume and read materials, it's not a substantive response just to say to somebody like, oh, well, you haven't read these things, therefore, I don't know, my position is now true. It doesn't follow.
no, it's not about your position, it's about your consciousness. Sorry, I had to go to the kitchen and start the coffee. My point is that the books change consciousness. So you might still be picture it this way, set up an experiment with a hardcore atheist. You force that person to read and reread 10 advanced, religious, psychological, esoteric books. That person may still be an atheist after reading all that, but their consciousness will have changed. And that's really, I think, the important thing. And consciousness, basically we want to create joy or happiness. So I'm just saying that these books and the linguistic dialectic can help with one's happiness and consciousness.
Hold on, yeah. Like when you say their consciousness, so what are you defining? Like, what's your concept or your conception of consciousness?
It's just the state of being. So if I read 10 books, that new information put into my memory retrieval system is going to change the way in which I consciously interact with the environment or the way that I
Okay,
feel.
but when you say state of being, so what do you mean by it is a state of being?
Honestly, I mean, I know you're kind of like a rascal and a child, but I'm just telling you, if you could answer my experimental hypothesis of an atheist reading 10 books like Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching, Dhammapada, the Bible, etc., it's going to change your consciousness.
And not include what you think are just what are clearly just attacks at me without actually dealing with what I'm saying. So could you just answer my question? What is your conception of consciousness?
I told you.
No, you didn't.
It's a state of being.
What does that mean?
Consciousness is basically the organism environment, the environment organism, where your brain, your body lives within this world and this organism. That is technically the state of consciousness.
You're just telling me, so the state of consciousness, right, you're saying is being in the world.
I said it's an organism, environment, organism paradigm. It's a situation.
Okay, so you're talking about a distinction, right, between essentially what I experience in the world and myself.
It is a combination of environment, organism, environment.
Right.
It's one and
I
the
got
same
that,
thing.
right? So what you're talking about, right, is the distinction between phenomena. So, when in fact, like consciousness is intentional, is that like what you're getting at? Is intentionality?
I'm saying technically the earth is consciousness. You are the earth.
Okay, so you're just saying nonsense to me now.
We are.
I'm not. I've heard it said that if you are anything, you actually are the earth. I know that sounds weird, but in some ways, I'm saying if you expand your consciousness enough, you actually realize that you're more than just an ant on an anthill. You actually
I don't know.
are the
You
anthill.
say your consciousness. What do you mean expand your consciousness?
So if you psychedelically expand your consciousness in conjunction with a variety of books, you will come to see that you are the self as in the creator. So you are infinite, you are immortal. That's the whole takeaway from esoteric philosophy is that you discover you can't die and you've always been alive, that you are the God of the Old Testament. It's always about you. The self, the hidden identity is the secret essence of all, esoteric mystery schools. It's discovering who you are.
What would be the argumentation for any of that being the case?
Books.
That's not an argument. So
Really?
What's the argument? What's the argument that I am the God of the Old Testament?
The argument comes from books that I've read. Otherwise, I have absolutely no basis of this hypothesis.
Argument, just some like story.
Not I wouldn't call it a story. I would call it a philosophical exploration.
Okay, so when you say philosophical explanation, what's the foundational philosophical principle that you're operating under? Are we talking an ontological distinction, a metaphysical distinction, a logical modality?
Are you giving me a survey? Do I have to respond with one of those three answers per your survey?
It doesn't have to be one of those three. I'm asking you what the actual philosophical distinction is that you're operating under here. What modality?
That you are God.
No, this is a challenge to see how well
It's that.
you know philosophy. And so far, you're embarrassing yourself. You claim that.
Oh, I don't really care.
I
don't really care if I'm embarrassing. My point is, this is what I'm telling you is all based off of, essentially.
Why should he take it seriously? Why should he take it seriously? Don't what's the argument?
Why should we take anything seriously from Rascal? He's a cat named Rascal.
You're just trolling it.
You're right. This is a troll. Okay, well, I'm only repeating to you back things that I've read in books. If you don't like it and it's gaslighting you, I don't really give a fuck. Go cry to your mommy, Nathan. Go waste your time on Clown House like you do all day, every day in your stupid rooms with Butcha, Nathan. You're a fucking moron, and I can't believe you're a soldier. You're fucking pathetic being on this app all day long. Don't you have important things to do in your life instead of sitting there? I knew that they would kick me. But I wanted to make an important point, but I couldn't remember what I was thinking about.
This is like 18 times, bro, on the table, bro. I rearranged the juices for no fucking reason, bro. I was so high, my eyes were bloodshot red, and I didn't smoke. I was just drinking the juice. That shit was crazy. What, you was on like 2,000 milligrams? No, yeah, I was on 2,000 milligrams, nigga, in the convention when niggas is smoking, and niggas is buying weed, and there's weed all over, nigga. I'm high as shit. Bro, that shit was crazy.
Yeah, you sound like fucking Donald Trump was here yesterday in my city.
Those look like space rocks, number 11.
Oh, you know, like that nigga for that be doing the little Instagram skits, Ken Starr. You know Ken Starr, the funny nigga. And you look him up on Instagram. He funny as shit, but he was hosting the whole little Schwarz that they had there with the weed shit. So it was a mob, right? I was high as shit, but you know how you so high you look at other people to see if they're you high, to see that you're not doing something stupid. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ever did that before? I'm the only one that's so fucking panicky that I'm not doing by my, like, you high shit, but you don't want to do nothing dumb, so you look up to see who's looking at you. It's like shit.
CRT, what's up with you?
I don't have to look up, and I'll like not be doing anything on my phone, but I'll just keep moving my thumb around.
Yeah. That's
Wait,
crazy.
11, you said you don't smoke dabs or anything like that?
Nah, because I be coughing my head off, bro. I don't like how I cough. That shit be hurting my head after a while now. Like just regular blunts and shit.
I fuck with them. I used to fuck with them a lot when I was a lot younger. But you can't sit there and smoke dabs, like, say you buy like a half a gram of dabs. And if you sit there and you're only smoking dabs for however long that half gram lasts you, and a half gram should last you a decent amount of time. You can't go from that to smoking weed. Like, if you can't smoke the blunt, because that blunt, you have to smoke like 3 blunts straight to the face to match a high that you would off of 2
That's
fucking
what I'm
dabs.
saying, and that's how my tolerance is at, right? I don't give a fuck what weed. It could be gumbo, fucking runts. I gotta smoke at least 3 blunts to feel nice, to get to that peak level that I enjoy, and that's only for like a good 30 minutes to max, maybe an hour, and then you back at it for another 3 months. So when I'm talking about a half ounce, I go through a half ounce like in 2 days, bro.
Yeah,
Maybe 3 days, bro. I smoke so much weed.
too. I smoke like half 2 days.
I had went to Colorado. So I was going to pick up an HP of a bunch of shit. And yeah.
What the hell you doing, girl?
Yeah, this is a long time ago. This is not now.
He's at
1,000 pounds now.
Yeah.
It's like all the reminiscent days. She getting 1,000 pounds now, Levin.
When she was Griselda Blanco, you feel me?
No, I was like 18, right? This is a while back. And no, I was going up there, I was picking up the HPs and like allegedly going back down to Louisiana.
Damn. You were going to Colorado?
Yeah.
Damn. That's
Because they had the gas back in the day. They had
back in the day. Yeah, they did gas. Everybody wanted to
And
go
they
to
still
Colorado.
do. I ain't going on the low. They still got gas though. Work.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't smoke anymore. I'm sober now. But like, whenever I was picking up weed, I stopped going there, and I would go to New Mexico because New Mexico they got good indoor shit.
But that
Damn, you was fucking traveling for that shit.
They giving that brick weed with mad seeds. I can't fuck
From
with
where I lived in Louisiana to where I was going in Colorado was a 24-hour drive on the dot.
Damn.
Well, you should do it straight through, or you had driver, you had somebody that swapped, you know.
I had someone with me.
Yeah, so you swap it. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
In fact, fuck stopping. We only stopping for gas, and we stopping for gas, and that's it. And to pee if we need to.
But look, I had went over there and I had got I think probably about 6 G's of like a bunch of different strands of dabs, or like, you know, they had dabs, they had like crystallized THC, that kind of shit. And obviously, bitch, if I'm going all the way to Colorado, I'm gonna keep something for myself. Keep something. And I was in Colorado for a week. And so I was smoking the entire time I was out there, plus like on the way home. You gotta be careful, you know, smoking on the way home, because I had to drive to Oklahoma and Texas to get back to Louisiana, so it wasn't, you know, Oklahoma cops don't fuck around with that shit, neither do Texas cops, especially up north. So if you get caught with this shit, you're fucked. And man, I smoked dabs for like probably about that whole week I was out there. I mean, I was facing blunts too, but by the time I got back to Louisiana, I was spending like, this is so like OD as fuck, but I was spending like $700 a week on bud just to match my tolerance with like how much bud I was smoking. And then I had to quit smoking for like 3 months because I was tired of spending so much fucking money on weed.
Yeah, that shit ridiculous. Yeah, I tallied that shit up yesterday because somebody asked me, like, how much weed you smoke? Because I've been about that. I just smoking. I'm like, shit, probably like 350, 400 a week.
Yo, bro.
And they're like,
Bro, you know how much I can get it right now? Some good indoor gold with QP. I get $350 right now.
yeah, that shit like 400 in North Carolina.
But I could probably get it if I get a QP for $350. I could probably get a half for $6. I get a whole thing for $12. I might even get a whole thing for a G. But it's the thing though. I found a loop because Mass is right there. But I ain't trying to hop on the highway. But I found a little back road. And I'm about to start getting right, gang.
Yeah, that shit.
Cause Mass got the fucking prices, gang.
Yeah, that
That's
shit.
fucking P's for 8, my nigga. Or some fire, bro.
Yeah. Mass got some gas.
What I was doing when I was younger, I'm like, if I'm still doing it now, I'm an upstanding citizen now.
Nah, but you money to get that type of money you would get it. It's cool because
But look though,
you feel me? As long as
Mari, that shit legal now.
Yeah, so it's like you get right.
But no, I'm still in a state where it's illegal, so they don't mean shit.
But motherfuckers is making money off that shit. Still like in North Carolina, this shit weed is illegal. But everybody here has a CBD shop. And in those CBD shops, it says we're selling THCA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they
but it's
sell
really,
but
it's really, it's really real gas.
Hey,
like,
yo, Oscar, you
I
ever
never
heard of the
shops
fucking
like
them niggas are high tolerance niggas? You know the high tolerance. You know high tolerance. Them niggas is from Mass. Them niggas, they made it, bro. Them niggas, the next run stack, you know, all right, so you know you got Burner with the cookies, then you got Homeboy LB with the runs. Nigga, the next thing that's up right now is high tolerance. They did that shit with Joel Santana that I can't feel my face with the little baby bags. They doing a lot of collaborations with artists. They the next niggas up in the rest.
yeah, bro.
Here's the thing though, like I said, whenever I was younger and I was doing this shit that I was doing, selling weed, shit like that, to buy weed legally, that shit was a lot more expensive than it is now. And street prices were a lot cheaper than they are now. If you go anywhere in my city right now to go buy an eighth, you're paying $65 for a fucking.
Whoa, where the fuck do you live? What state?
It was like that.
I live in Texas.
Oh, yeah, Texas.
Like 2-3 years ago.
Well, nah,
At first it was like, it wasn't worth it. The price was, it was like, okay, this is cool. But now, like, the prices have gone, like, significantly down. Like, it's way.
Yeah, the shit down right now, Mari. Like, especially in Texas, I know that people's getting everything's cheaper in Texas. Why? That's been like that
I live in a
forever.
big city. I live in a big city, and I live in a tourist city. So you have to be careful who you're buying from because people out here aren't like in Louisiana. If I say I was buying bud off of somebody, they would be able to tell me what kind of pack it is, if it's sativa, indica, all this, that, and the third. In Texas, they'll just be like, "Oh, I have this."
I got gas. It's
yeah, they'll come up with a name for it, and I'm not buying that shit. No, if I don't know what I'm smoking,
that's how it is.
It.
That's how it is in North Carolina. You just gotta go off like smell and people that smoke gas. Like, okay, like if you're starting to know weed or you've been smoking forever, you know good weed. I'm just smelling the shit. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Names and everything.
Here, especially because, like I said, I live in a big city, so like you have to be careful out here because out here, bro, they just had some dude get busted because he had like a couple P's of butt on him, and it was all laced with Betty.
CRT, hold on, CRT. And me not recording us, sorry, I'm about to keep the tool out of here.
This is all allegedly.
Are you recording us, Emmy? We're probably getting strained. Hold on, let me kick his ass out of here, man.
It's being recorded, and we are talking about hypothetical situations.
Emmy, come on, man, what you doing, bro? Oh, yeah, he gotta go.
It just hurt my soul. It's just, oh, it's so disgusting how people, like, these are innocent kids. Innocent babies.
Yeah, this is what.
What about the babies at the Planned Parenthood facilities? I can go down the street right now and get you 5 babies.
Fuck up. Bye.
What happened? What happened with Carl? Why you are so shouting?
He's an Israeli guy. He always records.
I'm not Israeli.
Tell you what.
Does anybody here
Right.
disagree with what I said first?
Yeah, let me just say why I disagree. Maybe I'm wrong, but let me say it right. Like why I say is that I could read the first premise on its own and know, okay, I agree. Okay, on its own. The second premise on its own, I agree. And then when I read the conclusion, I agree. And then I see that there's no link between them in the way I understood it initially. I can then go back. Hold on, you keep talking over me. I can then go back and realize that maybe these premises were trying to say more than I thought it was saying when I read them on their own. I think that's a fair way to think about it.
Yeah, that's fine. If you think that the premises are sneaking in something, but where, like, what is being snuck in?
Yeah, again, when I say what I think is being, I'm not really sure what is being snuck in, right? But what I'm saying is, if going by the type of reading I explained that you seem to agree of the first premise, I would not see how we could get to this conclusion that therefore whatever is directing the universe is more likely a mind than anything else we know. From those
Okay, so
premises.
here's my question. If the first premise is sounding true, the second premise is sounding true, and the conclusion is sounding true, wouldn't you just say the argument holds and it's true?
Of course, if that was the case, yes. But who said that?
Okay, cool. But you don't want to do that.
Shouldn't actually.
No, but I never said the first premise is sounding true. I never said the second premise is sounding true. I never said the conclusion is sounding true. What I said was the first premise, with what Albedo agreed to the first premise saying, of course, it's true, and that was what I said was trivially true. But I'm not convinced that's what that first premise is saying. I'm not convinced. The second premise, I definitely don't agree with that premise. The second premise is the one that I understand what's being said, and I think that is true. That for second premise is the premise I think is true. I agree with, and I understand what's saying, right? The conclusion, I obviously disagree.
But what's wrong with the first premise? What's it trying to say?
Let me read it again. The first premise saying we experience whatever it is that's directing the universe. Yeah, I'm saying that when it says we experience whatever it is that is directing the universe, right?
What are you guys even talking about? I can't even follow along anymore. This is stupid. This is jibber jabber.
All right.
Come to Dr. Elmo. It is Sunday already. I cannot believe that it is Sunday, Dr. Elmo.
So I used to have maybe two or 300 followers, and I used to follow like 50 or 60 people, my close people that, my circle in class. So
Collectively, what can happen as a whole. Don't listen to Dude, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So he grew up in a middle class neighborhood. Apparently that restricts you from understanding the plight of black people in general. So don't listen to that. Don't acknowledge that.
Because you're a collective action.
And I understand what we're trying to say, Bill. What we're trying to say is what can be good for us in the whole. Do some systemic problems. Systemic problems.
Okay, this is CRT re-education class, or education. I should have meant to say re-education. See if it cooks my boring ass motherfucking room with stupidity and shit.
Well, he's up there in Jersey, but
the fees here are pretty high.
Dude, I guarantee you, like,
I'm pretty sure I can find that in Virginia.
dude, you can find that anywhere up and down, like where there's a waterway.
Yeah, but that's why the solar stuff is so interesting, though. Because then you can have like your own independent power. That's the only thing that having a gas generator sucks. That like it just feels dirty. I know it's getting dirty somewhere else. If I'm using some sort of electric, like mining the fucking lithium or whatever, but still.
Well, mining lithium is dirty. Lithium is one of the most abundant minerals on the whole planet.
It is. And one of the byproducts of what's left over is pretty bad for you. Like trying to extract it and then wasting all that water, you end up polluting a lot of water.
I don't know, the plant that I invested in down in Southern Australia, I can't even think of their name right now.
Yeah, but that's a country of criminals. They do anything there.
Well, but all the
Oh shit, I fucked the title. It's actually Robert Peterson. So I played golf yesterday, and boy, is my hand hurting it. Welcome. Just coming in for the hellos, I guess. Hello. 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 Oh, hello. What did I do with my other phone? I left my other phone in the shitter. Crowley the Imp.
Magic in Theory and Practice. Chapter 0, The Magical Theory of the Universe. There are three main theories of the universe: dualism, monism, and nihilism. It is impossible to enter into a discussion of their relative merits in a popular manual of this sort. They may be studied in Erdmann's History of Philosophy and similar treatises. All are reconciled and unified in the theory which we shall now set forth. The basis of this harmony is given in Crowley's Bereshith, to which reference should be made. Infinite space is called the goddess Nuit, while the infinitely small and atomic yet omnipresent point is called Hadad. These are unmanifest. One conjunction of these infinites is called Rahorquit, a unity which includes and heads all things. There is also a particular nature of him in certain conditions, such as have obtained since the spring of 1904. This profoundly mystical conception is based upon actual spiritual experience, but the trained reason can reach a reflection of this idea by the method of logical contradiction, which ends in reason transcending itself. The reader should consult the soldier and the hunchback in Equinox 1:1 and Kant's Om Pax. Unity transcends consciousness. It is above all division. The father of thought, the word, is called chaos, the dyad. The number 3, the mother, is called Babylon. In connection with this, the reader should study the Temple of Solomon the King in Equinox 1:5 and Liber 418. The first triad is essentially unity in a manner transcending reason. The comprehension of this trinity is a matter of spiritual experience. All true gods are attributed to this trinity. An immeasurable abyss divides it from all manifestations of reason or the lower qualities of man. In the ultimate analysis of reason, we find all reason identified with this abyss. Yet this abyss is the crown of the mind. Purely intellectual faculties all obtain here. This abyss has no number, for in it all is confusion. Below this abyss, we find the moral qualities of man, of which there are 6. The highest is symbolized by the number 4. Its nature is fatherly. Mercy and authority are the attributes of its dignity. The number 5 is balanced against it. The attributes of 5 are energy and justice. 4 and 5 are again combined and harmonized in the number 6, whose nature is beauty and harmony, mortality and immortality. In the number 7, the feminine nature is again predominant, but it is the masculine type of female, the Amazon, who is balanced in the number 8 by the feminine type of male. In the number 9, we reach the last of the purely mental qualities. It identifies change with stability. Handed to this 6-fold system is the number 10, which includes the whole of matter as we know it by the senses. It is impossible here to explain thoroughly the complete conception, for it cannot be too clearly understood that this is a classification of the universe, that there is nothing which is not comprehended therein. The article on the Kabbalah in Volume 1, number 5 of the Equinox, is the best which has been written on the subject. It should be deeply studied in connection with the Kabbalistic diagrams in Nos 2 and 3, the Temple of Solomon the King, such as a crude and elementary sketch of this system. The formula of Tetragrammaton is the most important for the practical magician. Here Yod equals 2, He equals 3, Yav equals 49, the final He equals 10. The number 2 represents Yod, the divine or archetypal world, and the number 1 is only attained by the destruction of the god and the magician in Samadhi. The world of angels is under the numbers 4 to 9, and that of spirits under the number 10. All these numbers are of course parts of the magician, himself considered as the microcosm. The microcosm is an exact image of the macrocosm. The great work is the raising of the whole man in perfect balance to the power of infinity. The reader will remark that all criticism directed against the magical hierarchy is futile. One cannot call it incorrect. The only line to take might be that it was inconvenient. In the same way, one cannot say that the Roman alphabet is better or worse than the Greek, since all required sounds can be more or less satisfactorily represented by either. Yet both these alphabets were found so little satisfactory when it came to an attempt at phonetic printing of Oriental languages that the alphabet had to be expanded by the use of italics and other diacritical marks. In the same way, our magical alphabet of the Sephiroth and the Paths, 32 letters as it were, has been expanded into the 4 worlds corresponding to the 4 letters of the name Yod, Ha, Vav, Ha, and each Sephira is supposed to contain a tree of life of its own. Thus we obtain 400 Sephiroth instead of the original 10, and the paths being capable of similar multiplications or, rather of subdivision, the number is still further extended. Of course, this process might be indefinitely continued without destroying the original system. The apologia for this system is that our purest conceptions are symbolized in mathematics. God is the great arithmetician. God is the grand geometer. It is best, therefore, to prepare to apprehend him by formulating our minds according to these measures. To return, each letter of this alphabet may have its special magical sigil. The student must not expect to be given a cut-and-dried definition of what exactly is meant by any of all this. On the contrary, he must work backwards, putting the whole of his mental and moral outfit into these pigeonholes. You would not expect to be able to buy a filing cabinet with the names of all your past, present, and future correspondents ready indexed. Your cabinet has a system of letters and numbers meaningless in themselves, but ready to take on a meaning to you as you fill up the files. As your business increased, each letter and number would receive fresh accessions of meaning for you. And by adopting this orderly arrangement, you would be able to have a much more comprehensive grasp of your affairs than would otherwise be the case. By the use of this system, the magician is able ultimately to unify the whole of his knowledge, to transmute, even on the intellectual plane, the many into the one. The reader can now understand that the sketch given above of the magical hierarchy is hardly even an outline of the real theory of the universe. This theory may indeed be studied in the article already referred to in number 5 of the Equinox, and more deeply in the Book of the Law and the commentaries thereon. But the true understanding depends entirely upon the work of the magician himself. Without magical experience, it will be meaningless. In this there is nothing peculiar. It is so with all scientific knowledge. A blind man might cram up astronomy for the purpose of passing examinations, but his knowledge would be almost entirely unrelated to his experience, and it would certainly not give him sight. A similar phenomenon is observed when a gentleman who has taken an honors degree in modern languages at Cambridge arrives in Paris and is unable to order his dinner. To exclaim against the master Thurian is to act like a person who, observing this, should attack both the professors of French and the inhabitants of Paris, and perhaps go on to deny the existence of France. Let us say once again that the magical language is nothing but a convenient system of classification to enable the magician to docket his experiences as he obtains them. Yet this is true also that, once the language is mastered, one can divine the unknown by study of the known, just as one's knowledge of Latin and Greek enables one to understand some unfamiliar English word derived from those sources. Also, there is the similar case of the periodic law in chemistry, which enables science to prophesy, and so in the end to discover the existence of certain previously unsuspected elements in nature. All discussions upon philosophy are necessarily sterile, since truth is beyond language. They are, however, useful if carried far enough. If carried to the point when it becomes apparent that all arguments are arguments in a circle. But discussions of the details of purely imaginary qualities are frivolous and may be deadly. For the great danger of this magical theory is that the student may mistake the alphabet for the things which the words represent. An excellent man of great intelligence, a learned decabalist, once amazed the master Thurian by stating that the tree of life was the framework of the universe. It was as if someone had seriously maintained that a cat was a creature constructed by placing the letters C-A-T in that order. It is no wonder that magic has excited the ridicule of the unintelligent, since even its educated students can be guilty of so gross a violation of the first principles of common sense. Long since writing the above, an even grosser imbecility has been perpetrated. One who ought to have known better tried to improve the tree of life by turning the serpent of wisdom upside down. Yet he could not even make his scheme symmetrical. His little remaining good sense revolted at the supreme atrocities. Yet he succeeded in reducing the whole magical alphabet to nonsense and showing that he had never understood its real meaning. The absurdity of any such disturbance of the arrangement of the paths is evident to any sober student from such examples as the following. Binah, the supernal understanding, is connected with Tiferet, the human consciousness, by Zain, Gemini, the oracles of the gods, or the intuition. That is, the attribution represents a psychological fact. To replace it by the devil is either humor or plain idiocy. Again, the card Fortitude, Leo balances majesty and mercy with strength and severity. What sense is there in putting Death, the scorpion, in its stead? There are 20 other mistakes in the new wonderful illuminated from on high attribution. The student can therefore be sure of 20 more laughs if he cares to study it. A synopsis of the grades of the AA as illustrative of the magical hierarchy in man is given in Appendix 2, 1 star in sight. This should be read before proceeding with the chapter. The subject is very difficult. To deal with it in full is entirely beyond the limits of this small treatise. Further concerning the magical universe. All these letters of the magical alphabet referred to above are like so many names on a map. Man himself is a complete microcosm. Few other beings have this balanced perfection. Of course, every sun, every planet may have beings similarly constituted. But when we speak of dealing with the planets in magic, the reference is usually not to the actual planets, but to parts of the earth which are of the nature attributed to these planets. Thus, when we say that Nakheel is the intelligence of the sun, we do not mean that he lives in the sun, but only that he has a certain rank and character. And although we can invoke him, we do not necessarily mean that he exists in the same sense of the word in which our butcher exists. When we conjure Nakheel to visible appearance, it may be that our process resembles creation, or rather imagination, more nearly than it does calling forth. The aura of a man is called the magical mirror of the universe. And so far as anyone can tell, nothing exists outside of this mirror. It is at least convenient to represent the whole as if it were subjective. It leads to less confusion. And as a man is a perfect microcosm, it is perfectly easy to remodel one's conception at any moment. Now there is a traditional correspondence, which modern experiment has shown to be fairly reliable. There is a certain natural connection between certain letters, words, numbers, gestures, shapes, perfumes, and so on, so that any idea, or as we might call it, spirit, may be composed or called forth by the use of those things which are harmonious with it and express particular parts of its nature. These correspondences have been elaborately mapped in the book 777 in a very convenient and compendious form. It will be necessary for the student to make a careful study of this book in connection with some actual rituals of magic, for example, that of the evocation of Tafta printed in Equinox 1-3, pages 170 to 190, where he will see exactly why these things are to be used. Of course, as the student advances in knowledge by experience, he will find a progressive subtlety in the magical universe corresponding to his own. For let it be said yet again, not only is his aura a magical mirror of the universe, but the universe is a magical mirror of his aura. In this chapter, we are only able to give a very thin outline of magical theory, faint penciling by weak and wavering fingers, for this subject may almost be said to be coextensive with one's whole knowledge. The knowledge of exoteric science is comically limited by the fact that we have no access, except in the most indirect way, to any other celestial body than our own. In the last few years, the semi-educated have got an idea that they know a great deal about the universe, and the principal ground for their fine opinion of themselves is usually the telephone or the airship. It is pitiful to read the bombastic twaddle about progress, which journalists and others who wish to prevent men from thinking put out for consumption. We know infinitesimally little of the material universe. Our detailed knowledge is so contemptibly minute that it is hardly worth reference, save that our shame may spur us to increased endeavor. Such knowledge as we have got is of a very general and abstruse, of a philosophical and almost magical character. This consists principally of the conceptions of pure mathematics. It is therefore almost legitimate to say that pure mathematics is our link with the rest of the universe and with God. Now, the conceptions of magic are themselves profoundly mathematical. The whole basis of our theory is the Kabbalah, which corresponds to mathematics and geometry. The method of operation in magic is based on this, in very much the same way as the laws of mechanics are based on mathematics. So far, therefore, as we can be said to possess a magical theory of the universe, it must be a matter solely of fundamental law, with a few simple and comprehensive propositions stated in very general terms. I might expend a lifetime in exploring the details of one plane, just as an explorer might give his life to one corner of Africa, or a chemist to one subgroup of compounds. Each such detailed piece of work may be very valuable, but it does not as a rule throw light on the main principles of the universe. Its truth is the truth of one angle. It might even lead to error if some inferior person were to generalize from too few facts. Imagine an inhabitant of Mars who wished to philosophize about the Earth and had nothing to go by but the diary of some man at the North Pole. But the work of every explorer, on whatever branch of the tree of life the caterpillar he is after may happen to be crawling, is immensely helped by a grasp of general principles. Every magician, therefore, should study the Holy Kabbalah. Once he has mastered the main principles, he will find his work grow easy. Solvitur ambulando, which does not mean call the ambulance. Chapter 1, the Principles of Ritual. There is a single main definition of the object of all magical ritual. It is the uniting of the microcosm with the macrocosm. The supreme and complete ritual is therefore the invocation of the holy guardian angel, or in the language of mysticism, union with God. All other magical rituals are particular cases of this general principle, and the only excuse for doing them is that it sometimes occurs that one particular portion of the microcosm is so weak that its imperfection of impurity would vitiate the macrocosm of which it is the image, eidolon, or reflexion. For example, God is above sex, and therefore neither man nor woman as such can be said fully to understand, much less to represent, God. It is therefore incumbent on the male magician to cultivate those female virtues in which he is deficient, and this task he must of course accomplish without in any way impairing his virility. It will then be lawful for a magician to invoke Isis and identify himself with her. If he fail to do this, his apprehension of the universe, when he attains samadhi, will lack the conception of maternity. The result will be a metaphysical and, by corollary, ethical limitation in the religion which he founds. Judaism and Islam are striking example of this failure. To take another example, the ascetic life which devotion to magic so often involves argues a poverty of nature, a narrowness, a lack of generosity. Nature is infinitely prodigal. Not one in a million seeds ever comes to fruition. Whoso fails to recognize this, let him invoke Jupiter. The danger of ceremonial magic, the subtlest and deepest danger, is this: that the magician will naturally tend to invoke that partial being which most strongly appeals to him, so that his natural excess in that direction will be still further exaggerated. Let him, before beginning his work, endeavor to map out his own being and arrange his invocations in such a way as to redress the balance. This, of course, should have been done in a preliminary fashion during the preparation of the weapons and furniture of the temple. To consider in a more particular manner this question of the nature of ritual, we may suppose that he finds himself lacking in that perception of the value of life and death, alike of individuals and of races, which is characteristic of nature. He has perhaps a tendency to perceive the first noble truth uttered by Buddha, that everything is sorrow. Nature, it seems, is a tragedy, He has perhaps even experienced the great trance called sorrow. He should then consider whether there is not some deity who expresses this cycle and yet whose nature is joy. He will find what he requires in Dionysus. There are three main methods of invoking any deity. The first method consists of devotion to that deity, and being mainly mystical in character, need not be dealt with in this place, especially as a perfect instruction exists in Liber 175, see Appendix. The second method is the straightforward ceremonial invocation. It is the method which was usually employed in the Middle Ages. Its advantage is its directness, its disadvantage its crudity. The Gosha gives clear instruction in this method, and so do many other rituals, white and black. We shall presently devote some space to a clear exposition of this art. In the case of Bacchus, however, we may roughly outline the procedure. We find that the symbolism of Tifarth expresses the nature of Bacchus. It is then necessary to construct a ritual of Tifarth. Let us open the book 777. We shall find in line 6 of each column the various parts of our required apparatus. Having ordered everything duly,
Frank, you must be one real dumb motherfucker, whoever the fuck you are.
we shall exalt the mind by repeated prayers or conjurations to the highest conception of the God until, in one sense or another of the word, he appears to us and floods our consciousness with the light of his divinity. The third method is the dramatic, perhaps the most attractive of all. Certainly it is so to the artist's temperament, for it appeals to his imagination through his aesthetic sense. Its disadvantage lies principally in the difficulty of its performance by a single person. But it has the sanction of the highest antiquity and is probably the most useful for the foundation of a religion. It is the method of Catholic Christianity and consists in the dramatization of the legend of the god. The Bacchae of Euripides is a magnificent example of such a ritual. So also, through in a less degree, is the Mass. We may also mention many of the degrees in Freemasonry, particularly the third. The 5=6 ritual published in number 3 of the Equinox is another example. In the case of Bacchus, one commemorates firstly his birth of a mortal mother who has yielded her treasure house to the Father of all, of the jealousy and rage excited by this incarnation, and of the heavenly protection afforded to the infant. Next should be commemorated the journeying westward upon an ass. Now comes the great scene of the drama. The gentle, exquisite youth with his following, chiefly composed of women, seems to threaten the established order of things, and that established order takes steps to put an end to the upstart.
Oh, Frank, I don't know if you know this, but I have the volume turned down on my phone so I don't have to listen to your retarded voice.
Find Dionysus confronting the angry king, not with defiance, but with meekness, yet with a subtle confidence and underlying laughter. His forehead is
Frank, never go full retard, Frank. Never go full retard.
wreathed with fine tendrils.
Retard!
He is an effeminate figure with those broad leaves clustered upon his brow. But those leaves hide horns. King Pentheus, representative of respectability, is destroyed by his pride. He goes out into the mountains to attack the women who have followed Bacchus, the youth whom he has mocked, scourged, and put in chains, yet who has only smiled. And by those women, in their divine madness, he is torn to pieces. It has already seemed impertinent to say so much when Walter Pater has told the story with such sympathy and insight. We will not further transgress by dwelling upon the identity of this legend with the course of nature, its madness, its prodigality, its intoxication, its joy, and above all its sublime persistence through the cycles of life and death. The pagan reader must labor to understand this in Pater's Greek studies, and the Christian reader will recognize it, incident for incident, in the story of Christ. This legend is but the dramatization of spring. The magician who wishes to invoke Bacchus by this method must therefore arrange a ceremony in which he takes the part of Bacchus, undergoes all his trials, and emerges triumphant from beyond death.
Frank, do you normally just talk to yourself like this and annoy everyone in your life? God, you must be miserable.
Must, however, be warned against mistaking the symbolism. In this case, for example, the doctrine of individual immortality has been dragged in to the destruction of truth. It is not that utterly worthless part of man is individual consciousness as John Smith, which defies death. That consciousness which dies and is reborn in every thought. That which persists, if anything persists, is his real John Smithiness, a quality of which he was probably never conscious in his life. Even that does not persist unchanged. It is always growing. The cross is a barren stick, and the petals of the rose fall and decay. But in the union of the cross and the rose is a constant succession of new lives. Without this union, and without this death of the individual, the cycle would be broken. A chapter will be consecrated to removing the practical difficulties of this method of invocation. It will doubtless have been noted by the acumen of the reader that in the great essentials, these three methods are one. In each case, the magician identifies himself with the deity invoked. To invoke is to call in, just as to evoke is to call forth. This is the essential difference between the two branches of magic. In invocation, the macrocosm floods the consciousness. In evocation, the magician, having become the macrocosm, creates a microcosm. You invoke a god into the circle. You evoke a spirit into the triangle. In the first method, identity with the god is attained by love and by surrender, by giving up or suppressing all irrelevant and illusionary parts of yourself. It is the weeding of a garden. In the second method, identity is attained by paying special attention to the desired part of yourself. Positive, as the first method, is negative. It is the potting out and watering of a particular flower in the garden and the exposure of it to the sun. In the third, identity is attained by sympathy. It is very difficult for the ordinary man to lose himself completely in the subject of a play or of a novel. But for those who can do so, this method is unquestionably the best. Observe, each element in this cycle is of equal value. It is wrong to say triumphantly mors janua vidi, unless you add, with equal triumph, vita janua mortis. To one who understands this chain of the eons from the point of view alike of the sorrowing Isis and of the triumphant Osiris, not forgetting their link in the destroyer Apophis, there remains no secret veiled in nature. He cries that name of God which throughout history has been echoed by one religion to another, the infinite swelling M-I-A-O. Chapter 2, the formulae of the elemental weapons. Before discussing magical formulae in detail, one may observe that most rituals are composite and contain many formulae which must be harmonized into one. The first formula is that of the wand. In the sphere of the principle which the magician wishes to invoke, he rises from point to point in a perpendicular line, and then descends. Or else, beginning at the top, he comes directly down, invoking first the god of that sphere by devout supplication, that he may deign to send the appropriate archangel. He then beseeches the archangel to send the angel or angels of that sphere to his aid. He conjures this angel or angels to send the intelligence in question, and this intelligence he will conjure with authority to compel the obedience of the spirit and his manifestation. To this spirit he issues commands. It will be seen that this is a formula rather of evocation than of invocation, and for the latter the procedure, though apparently the same, should be conceived of in a different manner, which brings it under another formula, that of tetragrammaton. The essence of the force invoked is one, but the god represents the germ or beginning of the force, the archangel its development. And so on until with the spirit, we have the completion and perfection of that force. The formula of the cup is not so well suited for evocations, and the magical hierarchy is not involved in the same way. For the cup being passive rather than active, It is not fitting for the magician.
Wow, he finally left. I can't believe it. What a retard. I don't even know what he was saying, and I really don't even care.
To use it in respect of anything but the highest. And practical working it consequently means little but prayer, and that prayer the prayer of silence. The formula of the dagger is again unsuitable for either purpose, since the nature of the dagger is to criticize, to destroy, to disperse, and all true magical ceremonies tend to concentration. The dagger will therefore appear principally in the banishings, preliminary to the ceremony proper. The formula of the panticle is again of no particular use, for the panticle is inert. In fine, the formula of the wand is the only one with which we need more particularly concern ourselves. Now, in order to invoke any being, it is said by Hermes Trismegistus that the Magi employ 3 methods. The first, for the vulgar, is that of supplication. In this, the crude objective theory is assumed as true. There is a God named A, whom you, B, proceed to petition in exactly the same sense as a boy might ask his father for pocket money. The second method involves a little more subtlety, inasmuch as the magician endeavors to harmonize himself with the nature of the god and to a certain extent exalts himself in the course of the ceremony. But the third method is the only one worthy of our consideration. This consists of a real identification of the magician and the god. Note that to do this in perfection involves the attainment of a species of samadhi. And this fact alone suffices to link irrefragably magic with mysticism. Let us describe the magical method of identification. The symbolic form of the god is first studied with as much care as an artist would bestow upon his model, so that a perfectly clear and unshakable mental picture of the god is presented to the mind. Similarly, the attributes of the god are enshrined in speech, and such speeches are committed perfectly to memory. The invocation will then begin with a prayer to the god, commemorating his physical attributes, always with profound understanding of the real meaning. In the second part of the invocation, the voice of the god is heard, and his characteristic utterance is recited. In the third portion of the invocation, the magician asserts the identity of himself with the god. In the fourth portion, the god is again invoked, but as if by himself, as if it were the utterance of the will of the god that he should manifest in the magician. At the conclusion of this, the original object of the invocation is stated. Thus, in the invocation of Thoth, which is to be found in the Rite of Mercury, Equinox 1:6, and in Liber LXIV, the first part begins with the words Majesty of Godhead, Wisdom crowned, Ahuti. The I invoke. O thou of the ibis head, the I invoke. And so on. At the conclusion of this, a mental image of the god, infinitely vast and infinitely splendid, should be perceived in just the same sense as a man might see the sun. The second part begins with the words, Behold, I am yesterday, today, and the brother of tomorrow. The magician should imagine that he is hearing this voice, and at the same time that he is echoing it, that it is true also of himself. This thought should so exalt him that he is able at its conclusion to utter the sublime words which open the third part. Behold, he is in me, and I am in him. At this moment, he loses consciousness of his mortal being. He is that mental image which he previously but saw. This consciousness is only complete as he goes on. Mine is the radiance wherein Tau floateth over his firmament. I travel upon high. I tread upon the firmament of new. I raise a flashing flame with the lightnings of mine eye, ever rushing on in the splendor of the daily glorified Ra, giving my life to the treaders of earth. This thought gives the relation of God and man from the divine point of view. The magician is only recalled to himself at the conclusion of the third part, in which occur, almost as if by accident, the words, Therefore do all things obey my word. Yet in the fourth part, which begins, Therefore, do thou come forth unto me. It is not really the magician who is addressing the god.
Eitan, have you paid your brother the money yet? You owe him Rabbeinu Shalayim.
It is the god who hears the far-off utterance of the magician. If this invocation has been correctly performed, the words of the fourth part will sound distant and strange. It is surprising that a dummy, so the magus now appears to himself, should be able to speak. The Egyptian gods are so complete in their nature, so perfectly spiritual, and yet so perfectly material, that this one invocation is sufficient. The god bethinks him that the spirit of Mercury should now appear to the magician, and it is so. This Egyptian formula is therefore to be preferred to the hierarchical formula of the Hebrews with its tedious prayers, conjurations, and curses, reciprocating formula, which may be called the formula of Horus and Harpocrates. The magician addresses the god with an active projection of his will, and then becomes passive while the god addresses the universe. In the fourth part, he remains silent, listening to the prayer which arises therefrom. The formula of this invocation of Thoth may also be classed under Tetragrammaton. The first part is fire, the eager prayer of the magician. The second, water, in which the magician listens to or catches the reflection of the god. The third part is air, the marriage of fire and water. The god and the man have become one. While the fourth part corresponds to earth, the condensation or materialization of those three higher principles. With regard to the Hebrew formulae, it is doubtful whether most magicians who use them have ever properly grasped the principles underlying the method of identity. No passage which implies it occurs to mind, and the extant rituals certainly give no hint of such a conception, or of any but the most personal and material views of the nature of things. They seem to have thought that there was an archangel named Radziel in exactly the same sense as there was a statesman named Richelieu, an individual being living in a definite place. He had possibly certain powers of a somewhat metaphysical order. He might be in two places at once, for example, though even the possibility of so simple a feat, in the case of spirits, seems to be denied by certain passages in extant conjurations which tell the spirit that if he happens to be in chains in a particular place in hell, or if some other magician is conjuring him so that he cannot come, then let him send a spirit of similar nature, or otherwise avoid the difficulty. But of course, so vulgar a conception would not occur to the student of the Kabbalah. It is just possible that the Magi wrote their conjurations on this crude hypothesis in order to avoid the clouding of the mind by doubt and metaphysical speculation.
You gave the bait!
He who became the master Therion was once confronted by this very difficulty. Being determined to instruct mankind, he sought a simple statement of his object. His will was sufficiently informed by common sense to decide him to teach man the next step, the thing which was immediately above him. He might have called this God, or the higher self, or the Ogoites, or Adi Buddha, or 61 other things, but he had discovered that these were all one, yet that each one represented some theory of the universe which would ultimately be shattered by criticism, for he had already passed through the realm of reason and knew that every statement contained an absurdity. He therefore said, "Let me declare this work under this title: The Obtaining of the Knowledge and Conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, because the theory implied in these words is so patently absurd that only simpletons would waste much time in analyzing it. It would be accepted as a convention, and no one would incur the grave danger of building a philosophical system upon it. With this understanding, we may rehabilitate the Hebrew system of invocations. The mind is the great enemy. So, by invoking enthusiastically a person whom we know not to exist, we are rebuking that mind. Yet we should not refrain altogether from philosophizing in the light of the Holy Kabbalah. We should accept the magical hierarchy as a more or less convenient classification of the facts of the universe as they are known to us. And as our knowledge and understanding of those facts increase, so should we endeavor to adjust our idea of what we mean by any symbol. At the same time, let us reflect that there is a certain definite consensus of experience as to the correlation of the various beings of the hierarchy with the observed facts of magic. In the simple matter of astral vision, for example, one striking case may be quoted. Without telling him what it was, the master Thurian once recited as an invocation Sappho's Ode to Venus before a probationer of the AA who was ignorant of Greek, the language of the ode. The disciple then went on an astral journey, and everything seen by him was without exception harmonious with Venus. This was true down to the smallest detail. He even obtained all the 4 color scales of Venus with absolute correctness. Considering that he saw something like 100 symbols in all, the odds against coincidence are incalculably great. Such an experience, and the records of the AA contain dozens of similar cases, affords proof as absolute as any proof can be in this world of illusion that the correspondences in Liber 777 really represent facts in nature. It suggests itself that this straightforward system of magic was perhaps never really employed at all. One might maintain that the invocations which have come down to us are but the ruins of the temple of magic. The exorcisms might have been committed to writing for the purpose of memorizing them, while it was forbidden to make any record of the really important parts of the ceremony. Such details of ritual as we possess are meager and unconvincing, and though much success has been attained in the quite conventional exoteric way both by Frater Perturabo and by many of his colleagues, yet ceremonies of this character have always remained tedious and difficult. It has seemed as if the success were obtained almost in spite of the ceremony. In any case, they are the more mysterious parts of the ritual which have evoked the divine force. Such conjurations as those of the Gosha leave one cold, although notably in the second conjuration, there is a crude attempt to use that formula of commemoration of which we spoke in the preceding chapter. Chapter 3, the formula of Tetragrammaton. This formula is of most universal aspect, as all things are necessarily comprehended in it, but its use in a magical ceremony is little understood. The climax of the formula is in one sense before even the formulation of the yod. For the yod is the most divine aspect of the force. The remaining letters are but a solidification of the same thing. It must be understood that we are here speaking of the whole ceremony, considered as a unity, not merely of that formula in which Yod is the God invoked, He the archangel, and so on. In order to understand the ceremony under this formula, we must take a more extended view of the functions of the 4 weapons than we have hitherto done. The formation of the Yod is the formulation of the first creative force, of that Father who is called self-begotten, and unto whom it is said, Thou hast formulated thy father, and made fertile thy mother. The adding of the hat to the yod is the marriage of that father to the great co-equal mother, who is a reflection of Nuit as he is of Hadit. Their union brings forth the son Vav, who is the heir. Finally, the daughter He is produced. She is both the twin sister and the daughter of Vav. His mission is to redeem her by making her his bride. The result of this is to set her upon the throne of her mother, and it is only she whose youthful embrace can reawaken the eld of the All-Father. In this complex family relationship is symbolized the whole course of the universe. It will be seen that, after all, the climax is at the end. It is the second half of the formula, which symbolizes the great work which we are pledged to accomplish. The first step of this is the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel, which constitutes the adept of the inner order. The re-entry of these twin spouses into the womb of the mother is that initiation described in Liber 418, which gives admission to the inmost order of the AA of the last step, we cannot speak. It will now be recognized that to devise a practical magical ceremony to correspond to Tetragrammaton in this exalted sense might be difficult, if not impossible. In such a ceremony, the rituals of purification alone might occupy many incarnations. It will be necessary, therefore, to revert to the simpler view of Tetragrammaton, remembering only that the He final is the throne of the spirit, of the Shin of Pentagrammaton. The Yod will represent a swift and violent creative energy. Following this will be a calmer and more reflective, but even more powerful flow of will, the irresistible force of a mighty river. This state of mind will be followed by an expansion of the consciousness. It will penetrate all space, and this will finally undergo a crystallization resplendent with interior light. Such modifications of the original will may be observed in the course of the invocations when they are properly performed. The peculiar dangers of each are obvious. That of the first is a flash in the pan, a misfire. That of the second, a falling into dreaminess or reverie. That of the third, loss of concentration. A mistake in any of these points will prevent or injure the proper formation of the fourth. In the expression which will be used in chapter 15, inflame thyself, etc., only the first stage is specified. But if that is properly done, the other stages will follow as if by necessity. So far is it written concerning the formula of Tetragrammaton.
Okay, everybody, make sure you download the new Instacart app. Thank you for coming for Blood Angel Line.
Because they have to finally listen. Reinvention was, like, to me, blew my mind. Where he posted a picture on Twitter saying we're gonna change Clubhouse and you may or may not like it. And the picture he posted was some guy with flicking two birds. He's just doing birds with his finger, and you're like, this is not a really good way to entice your user, right?
What do you mean, two birds?
Like put the finger, give him the finger, flicking the bird. Yeah, that's what he posted on Twitter when he was like, "Yeah, we're redoing this, and you're probably gonna like it, but fuck you, we don't care." It was crazy, but now he's had to do. Yeah.
Right.
I lost you.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hey, Kavi, I really like your Instagram. Is that a real calendar or is that AI generated? Or
Yeah, it is a real calendar. It's on my desk. So yeah, it's one a day. It's a forever calendar.
are you
I miss that
Persian?
one day of the year. Am I Persian? No, I'm Indian.
Oh, got it. Well, Mazel Tov, Rabbeinu Shalom Loim.
I don't know that last one, but Mazel Tov to you too, bro.
You got any good mantras?
I don't really do mantras, to be honest.
Well, just talking is a mantra, though.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think mantras are talking, repeating certain things. I talk a lot, so if that's a mantra, then I must have many. But I don't have one that I repeat to myself consistently, other than trying to remind myself that I'm not this body and I am the soul. So I guess that's a mantra in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but you're more than that. You're more than just soul. You do realize that, right?
I mean, what is more than a soul? Soul is consciousness and the recording of everything that I have done across multiple lifetimes. What is more than that?
Well, it's a theory of everything, or essentially, that movie with God, what's the fucker's name? Jim Carrey, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is like saying that you are the soul, because it's said that it's an environment organism, meaning that you can't exist without the moon and the sun and the earth. So technically that's kind of also what you are. I know it's like a quantum leap of bullshit, but you are the sun, or you are the creator of the sun. If you are immortal or infinite, if you are an immortal infinite soul, that means that you are the creator or a creative presence. So I would just say that to say you're a soul is an all or nothing statement, because the soul is infinite. So that's the way I would say it.
Yeah, the soul is infinite, is immortal, and it is like so. I think where science is getting to now with quantum physics and quantum reality is that perception is creating reality. We're just not quite understanding it, and it kind of, they are talking about it, and they have been talking about it since the 70s, that we are living in a matrix of our own making, and there are codes to the matrix. And it is quite trippy to hear science talking about things that are in the realm of the spiritual, the esoteric.
Well, the science is getting into philosophy, and nothing is new under the sun. Everything that has already been. So a lot of fake science is just engaging in hypnosis. They're not actually doing anything other than trying to rediscourse morals, ethics, and virtues. So
yeah. Well, I mean, make sense of it, right? Like, so there was something that I was reading somewhere. I don't remember exactly what it was stating, but they were saying the original scientists were the priests who were trying to prove God's existence through, experimentation. That was the original, at least in the West, the origination of science, which I found fascinating. I hadn't heard that before.
the thing is, I don't think that they were so much trying to prove God's existence so much as they were trying to essentially carry out operations based on their knowledge of God through ceremonial magic.
explain that to me? Like, because magic seems to be in the realm of not understanding what's going on, and science seems to be explaining theories behind the mechanisms.
I would say magic is more theatrical in the sense that it's creative product for content consumption. So society, it's basically economics in a way, you know. It's content creation.
So, like by that definition, content creation, I don't know.
People tithe. I'm telling you that it's LARPing. It's role playing. It's theatrical. It's Shakespearean. It's business. You know, I'm creating a television show or a theater performance. You know, and I want you to come every Sunday at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. We got 2 shows. That's what I'm telling you. Is a church or a mosque puts on a show, or a temple puts on a show for its tithing participants, and then hopefully gives you information in a condensed, easy to read format that can help you for, you know, the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I see that point of view. It's slightly, I would say it's slightly cynical. It suggests that no
It's
one
not cynical.
in those positions are actually doing it to serve their fellow.
Yeah, I think they think that they're spreading good information.
I guess it's not about like thinking, but what it's like when you say it's business, it's transactional. So it's not a service that you're providing.
It is a service. It's a content creation service.
I guess what I'm saying is it's not if you're not being of service. It's a transaction.
No, you are being of service. I'm telling you, you have a right to be paid for your knowledge and understanding and capability of entertaining and delighting. It took a lot of years to figure out how to get up on stage and perform for 3 hours and hypnotize with great pleasure. You see, it's not easy to create something that people want to pay for and stick around and watch because they're delighted. It's not easy. You should be paid for that.
Well, like if you're an entertainer, yeah, maybe. But if you are,
What I'm telling you is religion or priests or basically the leaders of nonprofit religious organizations are essentially performers. They have to be performative in order to maintain an audience. This is basically communication theory 101 or business 101.
yeah. So I'm going to take it back to tribal times, right? When you had
A shaman.
yeah.
A human shola.
And so like, in India, we don't, there are people you go to, they don't charge you anything for their service.
You got to make a donation. I get it. It's the same thing with rabbis. You go make tzedakah, and what it does is it makes a universal course correction because you're giving part of your soul to a religious body, hoping to change your life because you're depressed, you're sad, you're anxious, you're scared, you want something. You know, people do transactional business for spiritual universal change.
Of course, but I'm just saying it's not all in that thing, right? So anything that's fear-based is very different to anything that's love-based. They're two different types of communication styles, right? Fear-based is, you're never going to be able to break out of that situation. You're always going to be subservient and a victim in that situation.
That's just your opinion. That's just your opinion. It's not a maxim or an aphorism. Because the fear of God. Because what you're saying, you're close to making that a correct statement. I mean, I can rephrase it correctly for you. It's just my opinion versus your opinion with regards to that statement.
Sure. Let me know how to phrase it better. How would you?
I mean, it's the fear of God is the understanding of wisdom. Because when you understand wisdom, you fear God because you realized how insignificant of a fart dust particle you are in terms of the eternal creator. So you have to be in awe. And I was reading a book about humility and how in the Bible it talks about how Moses always practiced humility. When he was called forth in Egypt, he said, "Who the hell am I to do these things?" When he was at the Red Sea, he said, "Who am I to do these things? I'll wait for God to do it," and God did it. So It's about humility. I mean, that is the secret sauce, is like the micro and the macro. So that in terms of your Indian, Hinduism, Ganesha, the mouse sits at the foot of Ganesha. That's the micro, the elephant is the macro. So what I'm telling you is the micro is technically the position you always want to be in, which is the deflated ego or the deflated sense of self. And because you have a deflated sense of self, it's because you have fear of God. You realize that, man, I can't be a tyrannical asshole, murderous cocksucker because that's wrong. And A, it's going to come back tenfold. I mean, live by the sword, die by the sword. So you want to be the ninja, not the samurai.
I understand where you're coming from. It's not my experience, right? So I've never lived in fear of God. If I've had any fear, it's of my the consequence of my own actions, right? It's not that God punishes me. It's the karma, that it's the law, that the natural law.
I don't mean literally. I don't mean literally. I don't mean literally. I mean
Yeah,
metaphorically.
so yeah, and that's the thing, right? That fear of God concept, it's alien to me in many ways.
Well, see, the thing is, the esoteric explanation is God is self or self is God. And so what I'm saying is you have to be a fear of your own internal eternal watcher. That's why you don't, basically in the real world outside of Clown House, go around and throw punches. Here you can come here and throw punches without regret because you know it can't be reciprocated and there's no legal repercussions. But if you were to talk to people the way that people talk to each other here, in a threatening, demeaning, abusive manner, you wouldn't last very long in the work world. You wouldn't last very long in any type of world outside of Clown House. So this is a safe. This is basically like a linguistic proving ground or a linguistic safe zone to basically be a tyrant and get away with it.
I mean, it's no different from the internet in the early days with chat rooms and people being invisible and saying things that they would never say, right? Like, it's just another thing where people who feel, that they have a voice that they haven't been able to express can do it anonymously. And sad, but yeah, I see this, but I don't see any different to the early days of the internet with chat rooms and threads and all that sort of stuff, but people just spewing hatred and getting away with it because of the anonymity. And I guess that sort of speaks to the person's character. It's not everyone on the internet, but there is a group that is vocal and, if I'm allowed to say it, toxic. But it's not everyone.
Okay, so you know what I like to do on this app is read books. Are you driving in a car right now?
I am, yeah.
So have you ever read the Rig Veda?
No.
You haven't read the Rig Veda?
No, I'm not a reader. I don't read.
Oh my God, you have to listen to the Rig Veda. Can I read you a few verses?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, this is the Rig Veda. It's called Hymn XCV11 or Soma Pavamana. Made pure by this.
What is the?
What?
Sorry, just curious. What is the? I don't know the origin.
It's called the Rig. It's called the Rig Veda. It's a sacred Hindu text. It's one of the most famous sacred Hindu texts. It's more famous than the Upanishad, and more famous than Bhagavad Gita. It's called Rig Veda. You never heard of it?
Never heard. I've heard of the Bhagavad Gita, and I've kind of made my way through that a little bit, but never really,
Oh my gosh, this is a far out psychedelic book, and it's basically Hindu poetry storytelling, and it's incredible. Like this is one of the most profound books I've ever read in my life because it deals all with God consciousness and consciousness of mankind. It's amazing.
Okay, sorry.
Anyways, Hinduism is very cool because it's super complex and there's so much of it. It's like comic books on steroids times 1,000 times 1,000. Okay, so this is called Soma Pavamana. Made pure, and I read this in like an English retard's voice, so. Made pure by this man's urgent zeal and impulse that God hath to the gods his juice imparted. He goes, effused and singing to the philter, like priest to measured seats supplied with cattle, robed in fair raiment, meet to wear in battle, a mighty sage pronouncing invocations. Roll onward to the beakers as they cleanse thee, fast seeing at the feast of gods and watchful. Dear, he is brightened on the fleecy summit, a prince among us, nobler than the noble. Roar out as thou art purified, run forward, do ye preserve us evermore with blessings. Let us sing praises to the gods, sing loudly. Send ye the Soma forth for mighty riches. Let him flow, sweetly flavored through the filter, and let our pious one rest in the pitcher. Winning the friendship of the deities, Indu flows in 1,000 streams to make them joyful. Praised by the men after the ancient statute, he hath come nigh for our great bliss to Indra. Flow, gold-hued, cleansing thee to enrich the singer. Let thy juice go to Indra to support him. Come nigh together with the gods for bounty, do ye preserve us evermore with blessings. The god declares the deities generations like Usana, proclaiming lofty wisdom. With brilliant kin far ruling, sanctifying, the boar advances, singing to the places. The swans, the Versaganas, from Anielas have brought the restless spirit to our dwelling. Friends come to Pavamana, meet for praises, and sound in concert the restless music. He follows the wide strider's rapid movement, cows low, as 'twere to him who sports at pleasure. He with the sharpened horns bring forth abundance. The silvery shines by night, by day the golden. Strong Indu, bathed in milk, flows on for Indra, Soma, exciting strength. To make him joyful, he quells malignities and slays the demons, the king of mighty power who brings us comfort. Then in the stream he flows, milked out with priests, with press stones, mingled with sweetness through the fleecy filter. Indu rejoicing in the love of Indra, the god who gladdens for the god's enjoyment. As he is purified, he pours out treasures, a god be doing gods with his own juices. Indu hath willing qualities by seasons, and the raised fleece engage the 10 swift fingers. The red bull, bellowing to the kine, advances, causing the heavens and earth to roar in thunder. Well is he heard like Indra shout in battle, letting this voice be known. He hastens hither, swelling with milk, abounding in sweet flavors, urging the meat-rich plant. Thou goest onward, raising a shout, thou flowest as they cleanse thee. When thou, O Soma, art effused for Indra, so flow thou on, inspiring for rapture amid death shafts at him who stays the waters. Flow to us wearing thy resplendent color, effused and eager for the kine, O Soma. Pleased with us, Indu, send us as thou flowest, good easy paths in ample space and comforts. Dispelling as 'twere with a club, misfortunes run o'er the height, run o'er the fleecy summit. Pour on us, rain celestial, quickly streaming, refreshing, fraught with health and ready bounty. Flow, Indu, send these winds thy lower kinsmen, setting them free like locks of hair unbraided. Part like a knotted tangle while they cleanse thee, O Soma. Righteous and unrighteous conduct, nay, like a tawny courser who is loosened, come like a youth, O God, O a house possessor. For the god's service, for delight, O Indu, run o'er the height, run o'er the fleecy summit. With 1,000 streams inviolate, sweet scented, flow on for gain of strength that conquers heroes. Without a car, without a rein to guide them, unyoked light coursers started in the contest. These brilliant drops of Soma juice run forward, do ye, O deities, come nigh to drink them. So for our banquet of the gods, O Indu, pour down the rains of heaven into the vessels. May Soma grant us riches, sought with longing, mighty, exceeding strong, with store of heroes. With time, the loving spirit's word had formed him chief of all food by statute of the highest. Then loudly lowing came the cows to Indu, the chosen well-loved master in the beaker. The sage, celestial, liberal, remaining bounties pause as he flows, the genuine for the truthful, the king shall be effectual. Strength's upholder, he by the 10 bright reins is mostly guided. He who beholds mankind made pure with filters, the king supreme of deities and mortals. From days of old, his treasure lord of riches, he Hindu cherishes fair, well-kept order. Haste like a steed to victory for glory, to Indra's end, to Vayu's entertainment. Give us food ample, thousandfold, be Soma the finder out of riches when they cleanse it. So, I could keep reading it, but basically, it's like a positive affirmation book. It's like a hypnosis. It's basically a script. It's a hypnosis book for invocation, to bring in God into the soul. So, or to bring more abundance or power or understanding or whatever. So, yeah, basically, I have a lot of books like that are, I have chantings of the guru. It's all the same stuff. It's a powerful book, but it works best if you read it out loud, on a Sunday in the sun doing yoga with a glass of wine. That's my opinion.
I'm not quite sure yoga and wine makes if you're looking for spiritual enlightenment, but each to their own. And I guess different things for different people, right? Like for me, I've tried chanting. It's not really my thing. It's more about quieting the mind and detaching from the world whilst being in the world. That's the challenging part.
I know, but chanting is a technique. It's making music. That's all you're doing. What you're doing is overriding the automated thought system. So you can basically go to Lake Chita, the lake of peace.
Yeah, I get it. But what I'm saying is it doesn't actually help you with the living. You can't walk around, do your daily shopping whilst chanting.
You can't? You can't walk and chew gum at the same time? You can say Om, 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 Om. You can just do that.
Not without alienating people.
No, you don't have to do it out loud. You can do it in your head, in your mind's eye. You just go.
That's what I'm saying. If that works for you, it's fine. But you can do it if you quiet in the mind.
I'm just kidding around, man. I'm kidding around. I get it. It's very easy to go. I'm just saying it's not that difficult to go to the grocery store and not have compulsive thoughts and just to be happy with the experience of picking what you need to pick. The thing is,
That's very different to being detached from any outcomes or any desires whilst doing that, right? Being happy is the easy part once you can realize certain things, but being completely detached from any outcome or any desire whilst doing that, that's the hard part.
Listen, there's only one thing that I would have that I have attachment to with regards to the outcome. Do you know what that is?
Nope.
Basically, love.
I don't have any attachment to love.
Have you ever been in love?
I have loved. I do love, but that's very different to being in love.
I'm saying pairing with a woman.
Yeah, so you're talking about love in a very specific facet of love. I'm talking about love.
I'm talking about love. You are so funny, bro. You are so funny.
Yeah, so you're talking about being in love with a particular human being.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm talking about love constantly, regardless of circumstances.
Okay, I know, but then answer my question. Have you ever been in love with a particular human being?
I don't think I thought I had been, but no. I do love people. But my love is not constant.
Have you ever been in love with a woman? A woman?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say I have been in love.
No, with a woman. I'm specifically saying a woman.
You're talking about being in love.
With a woman.
Wait, are you talking about love? So there's a difference between being in
not
love.
lust. You brought that word into this conversation. I'm not bringing that word into this conversation.
What does it mean to be in love with someone?
I don't know how to describe it. It's basically sometimes you feel like an avatar, meaning that like you are possessed and that this person this woman, this woe man controls you. And then there's other times where you feel unity, and then there's other times where you feel, I don't know, total bliss, total happiness or contentment of peace of mind. But that's why how I started this out, saying that love is the only thing where the outcome is not taken into consideration. So you have to have faith and totally let go in a unity situation with a woe man.
I think so you just described three different states of love, right? And that unity, if that's what you're talking about in love, being in love, then yes. But that's across the board, right? That is a pure form of love that works across the board, and it's not particular to a single human being or even a living being. That's a very different state to the first two states that you spoke about. So I'm not sure if I lost you, but I've got to my destination. So I'm about to alight from the car.
Another banger.
Oh, that's Shepherd. Shepherd, you got something you want to get off your chest, homeboy?
Yeah, what you talking about? I ain't paying nothing, baby. I'm just
Okay, all right, baby.
I love it.
Shut up, 50, bitch ass nigga.
Oh, you cool, you cool. I thought you was booty clapping in the back, but you good.
Nah, baby. I ain't booty clapping all night. Pause. I don't do that, baby.
Baby. All right, we don't want to hear that shit, Fitty. I'm not gonna hold you.
I'll get more credit.
Yeah, it's too early for that shit. Yeah.
Hey, China guy.
Oh, I think there's a distinction to be made, China guy, between potential threat and actual. So are you saying we're threatening, or are you just saying potentially?
Well, I think you meant, Ryan, I think you meant capability, right? I think that what we're really talking about is America's capacity, and I'm using threat as in physical, so I would say military might. That America has the most powerful, weaponized military in the world, and thus
Yeah, that's
No,
an easy yes.
military is actually the last resort, right? Before we even go there, there's like subtle interference in other people's politics, right? Through the funding of the National Endowment for Democracy, who perpetuates the so-called freedom of democracy, but of course it's just meddling in other countries' elections and so forth, so and so forth. And then there is
that's programs, right?
Then there could be like soft coups, right? That what America attempted a couple of years ago in Venezuela. I said, oh no, they elected Maduro's. We don't like it. No, that's not your legitimate president. We don't like this guy Guaido. Never even run for election. No, that is your president now. Like freaking shit like that. And then like literal hard military coup, like what happened in Egypt, Al-Sisi and etc. Because they don't like the Muslim Brotherhood for good reasons, because of the allies, Israel. And then there's like downright military intervention, like in Iraq and so on and so forth.
Wait, are you saying that the Muslim Brotherhood are the allies of Israel intelligence?
No. The Muslim Brotherhood are pretty antagonistic towards Israel, obviously, and therefore, they were never liked. Although Morsi was actually elected as president, in a democratic election, but he was overthrown by Al-Sisi, who was, a military dictator, basically, and which is backed by the U.S. and all its allies. So anyway, if you can conceive the fact that America is a global hegemon, right? When you're a global hegemon, anything that happens anywhere in the world would undermine your interest, or it's always to your interest either way, right? So in that sense, that anything.
But that China guy, that's not true, man. That's an all or nothing statement. The State Department are advanced, man. They use Chinese philosophy, Hindu psychology. They're smarter than you think. America is very flexible. It's not necessarily an all or nothing position on everything or anything. America is based on hermeticism or changefulness, or that's really the true essence of American Freemasonic philosophy is change. That's the truth of the earth, my nigga.
Okay, I'm just letting you know that. You know what you meant. Okay, my point is, if you can conceive that America is a global hegemon, and then therefore anything that happens anywhere around the world, but either to America's interest or undermines America's interest. So everything that happens everywhere, anywhere outside the American borders would be America's so-called national interest, right? In that sense,
Didn't you just define what every country does?
No, because not every country is a global hegemon. My God.
So let's talk about the global. Let's talk about the three. Let's talk about the three countries. We're talking about China, U.S., and Russia, right?
Hold on. Let me